I was reading some of the comments that come up in some of my videos, and I suppose my channel is to drive debate about the faith. It's to drive a conversation on the faith. I am not an expert, I'm not a theologian, I'm not a doctor. I do have some formation in the faith, and I do love it, and I do read as much as I can, but I'm not an expert. So I have to be humble enough to know if I'm going right or wrong what I'm saying, if I'm leading people to Christ or if I'm leading them away from Christ. You know, this is a medium that we can use to help people know and love the faith. But you know, when you're talking about the Pope, and I suppose we do want to challenge ourselves and to challenge this world. We do want to challenge ourselves and challenge this world to better know Christ. And the Pope, in my last video, I kind of a bit of satire there on what the Pope was saying about calling out traditional Catholics having a nostalgic disease. And to many of us, that can be a bit hurtful, because I don't think we have a nostalgic disease. We just have a love for Christ, a love for prayer. We want to reverence our Lord in that most intimate moment of his passion, because the sacrifice of the Mass is a sacrifice. And I just want to share my own experience of this, and just be a little bit vulnerable in my own experience in prayer, and why it kind of pains me when we just turn the Mass into some entertainment show. Because, one time in prayer, and a very strange moment, I was out walking, like I do today. I was walking in another place near here, and Christ, I don't know how this works, but all of a sudden I'm in front of Christ crucified, and he says to me, put your hand on my Sacred Heart. Now, this wasn't a Christ crucified as you see in some pictures where he's way up there, like crucified on a cross that's 4 meters high, that his feet are at our level. Christ was crucified just above the ground. So he's practically looking at you just like at eye level. He's not so distant, but he's down here, because what happened was, from what I could see, is that dogs and animals would eat these bodies. This is what the Roman torture. It was a very degrading torture. It wasn't just being crucified, it was being tortured. And then your body was further tortured while you were on this cross. And people would have been eaten by dogs. And in order for a dog to get at you, you were crucified down at practically at ground level. So he's crucified what? I mean, how can I say it? 50, 60 centimeters above the ground. I mean, the cross was a lot lower than what artistic visions we see. Because he became man, and he became man in every way, and he suffered in every way, and he died at our level. He died at our height. He wasn't way up there. He was down here. And I suppose the picture that I want to give you, and I've been researching this, and a lot of research have confirmed what I saw. Christ is there at our level, in our midst, in our suffering, at our level. And in the church at the moment, one day in prayer he said to me, I will speak to you in my church. And so I'm not getting any private revelations, or I'm no mystic getting volumes and volumes of stuff to give you. I'm not that person. I don't, but I know I'm loved by God. I know Christ has opened up this immense love of the Father that has for me, and he wants to bring this out to the world. It's encountering Christ at his most vulnerable. It's encountering Christ at the crucifixion, preaching about this Christ crucified, as St. Paul does. That we need to bring this into the world so people can know him. And the liturgy and the Mass, in a sense, is that same encounter. And it's an encounter of Christ at his most vulnerable, at his most painful moment. And we don't treat that encounter with Christ as something banal, something mundane, something, come if you like, or come if you don't. If people encountered Christ at Calvary, they would understand him different, they would know him different. And it's for that reason I love the traditional Latin Mass, but I don't worship the rubrics or the form of that Mass in and of itself. But I don't worship it in and of itself, but I do want to make better known that, the Christ that's there. And I think souls throughout the centuries, when you're encountered with this reality, you do want to make better known that there is this amazing hope, there is the resurrection after Calvary, but there was Calvary, and that's very important. And our Eucharist is a sacrifice. It is the bloodless sacrifice, the Son being offered to the Father. And it is a very, very deep mystical prayer. The Mass said is a very deep mystical prayer in which we are united with the priest. We share in his priesthood in a way, but it is a deep mystical encounter with Christ. Coming back, bringing this back down to earth, bringing this back down to reality. If we claim to be traditional Catholics, we have to have traditional charity. Because there are great saints that go to the Novus Ordo. I know many traditional Catholics think they're lost, they don't know anything. Oh no, you're so wrong. You're so wrong. There are many saints that go to the new Mass, and many saints that are probably better than many Catholics who claim to be traditional. I know this because I've met them. Hidden, humble people. You'll never know that they're in the church. They are real saints. Another thing, it came up on social media today, Pope meets Superman, and, the people kind of belittling the fact that the Pope meets Superman and so on and so forth. I mean, this Italian guy that was dressed in Superman, he's actually a layman that volunteers in his spare time and goes into hospital to cheer up the lives of terminally ill kids or sick kids. He has a real normal day job, but he just volunteers. I mean, don't just read the headlines sometimes and watch Pope Francis do. Go beyond what the headlines and see that, not everything that the Pope says or does is bad. And I suppose, but it's about driving this conversation in a charitable Catholic way, renewing the faith in a charitable Catholic way. And the Pope will call out traditional Catholics for the simple reason we claim oftentimes to know the faith. Traditional priests, traditional Catholics, we claim, the Michael Matts, the Taylor Marshall, the Voruses, all of these traditional voices in the English-speaking world claim to know the Catholic faith. Well, then you have to have Catholic charity. You have to have Catholic dialogue. You have to be able to talk to other people, in a Catholic way. We can preach the faith and preach the truth, but not completely divide our church. Because otherwise we're going to end up with as traditional Gnostics, that if you only do it this way, this is the only way you're going to be saved. You're only going to be saved as a Catholic if you go traditional Latin Mass. If you go to the Novus Ordo, you're not going to get any grace, you're not going to be saved. It's not true, guys. It's not true. It's not true. If I promote the traditional Latin Mass, it's because it is simply a jewel. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful encounter. But to say that people are not encountering Christ in the Novus Ordo is not true. He's there. He's literally there. His grace is flowing in the church. He hasn't abandoned us. And I suppose that's just the message, my meditation on it. Christ is such an amazing encounter. Your mind just doesn't, your life just doesn't stay the same when you've encountered him. You're there wondering, wow, this is hard to this is really real. When you realize that Christ really exists, when you move beyond the debate, does God exist? Well, yes, God exists. But Christ exists, yes, he exists. And then you're going into what exactly his message and his love is. And when you keep going into this mystery, time again, it's transformative. So, I just want to give this message, especially people commenting on my videos. Have traditional charity. don't fall into the extremes of crystallizing and hardening your position to such an extent you won't talk to other Catholics. That isn't Catholic. We become traditional Gnostics if we do that. In the real sense, we'll become traditional Gnostics if we believe that only practicing in this way or only doing this is the only way to salvation. And like, there are many traditional Catholics who go to the Novus Ordo and love the faith, know the faith, have profound life of grace, confession, sacraments. There is, Christ hasn't abandoned us. Anyway, God bless you. Take care. Bye bye.